behalf of the Executive Director of CDD, I'd like to welcome you to this event. My name is Kathy Adi. I'm with the Center for Democratic Development. To start off the program, I'd like to call on Mr. Kojo Asante, Head of Programs, to give us the opening remarks.
Good evening to everybody. His Grace, the Metropolitan Archbishop of Accra, Honorable Ministers of State, Honorable Members of Parliament, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, friends of the media, I'm pleased and honored to welcome you to the British Council to this evening's event. On behalf of the Executive Director, Governing Board, staff and associates of CDD Ghana, and also on my own behalf. CDD Ghana, founded in 1998, is an independent, non-governmental and non-partisan institution dedicated to the promotion of democracy, good governance, and economic openness in Ghana and in Africa. The Center pursues its mission through research and publications, seminars, conferences, workshops, roundtables, and outreach, as well as local and international collaborations and partnerships. CDD Ghana is a member of the Consortium of Researchers on Power, Politics, and Policy in Africa, the Network of Democracy Research Institutes, and the Secretariat of the International Advisory Committee for the Community of Democracies, and a member of the Consortium for Development Partners on Modeling Successful Governance Institutions in West Africa. CDD Ghana is also a member and a manager of the AKWAMU, a survey research project tracking public opinion on political, social, and economic developments in 20 African countries. In addition to its numerous activities within Ghana, the Center has provided consultancy services and technical assistance to several African countries in the areas of elections, anti-corruption, transitional justice, and governance reforms. CDD Ghana serves as the technical secretariat of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, that has monitored national and local level elections in Ghana since 2000. It managed the training and nationwide deployment of over 4,000 election observers drawn from over 30 religious and secular civil society bodies in the 2 rounds of elections in December 2008. The Center also successfully initiated for the first time in Ghana the parallel vote tabulation exercise using SMS text messaging technology in the same election, and also pioneered the development and testing of an instrument and early warning mechanism for tracking election ballots undertaken in 25 districts in Ghana during the 2008 election. The Center's governing board is chaired by Mr. Kwesi Apiesi, former CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council. Other members are Justice Therese Scott, former executive chairman of the Ghana Law Reform Commission, former justice of the High Court of Ghana and former diplomat. Mrs. Angelina Domachari, head of the legal department of Volta River Authority, and former deputy commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Mr. Sebday, director of Blue Skies Company Limited, Blue Skies Holdings. He is also former CEO of Visa Free Company Limited. Professor Nana Okuajuma, Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast. Dr. Odrigadepo, Senior Lecturer, School of Communication Studies, University of Ghana, Lagos. And Kwesi Prempeh, Associate Professor of Law, Sitting Hall University in the USA. Mr. William Yeboah, CEO, Purple Management, and former CEO, Horizon Finance and Leasing Company, is the board secretary. And Dr. Baf Whiteman, we are currently on leave, and Professor Ijima Bwedi are serving as ex-official members. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me say something about the KRONTI Democracy and Good Governance lecture. The lecture is the Center's flagship annual public lecture on democracy and good governance. It is one of the center's initiatives aimed at bridging the gap between reflection, research, and analysis on one hand, and the pro-democracy and good governance advocacy on the other. Therefore, it is aimed at enriching the quality of public discourse on democratic and governance reforms. The lecture features distinguished scholars and practitioners of local and international repute, whose work focuses on democracy building and fostering good governance. Speakers are invited to share knowledge and insights on these issues in the hope of stimulating vibrant debate. The lecture has been dubbed KRONTI AKWAMU, after the hand symbol that best represents democracy, duality of the essence of life, and interdependence. The symbol encapsulates a system of decentralized political authority with different branches of government complementing and also checking each other. The maiden lecture was delivered in March 2005. It featured an internationally renowned scholar and activist of democratic development, Professor Larry Diamond, a senior fellow of the Hoover Institution at Stanford University in the USA. He spoke on the topic Democracy and Development, a case of mutual dependence. The then Chief Justice of Ghana, His Lordship, Justice George Kingsley Akwa, was the chairman for the occasion. The second KRONTI AKWAMU lecture was delivered by the distinguished Ghanaian lawyer, statesman, and former Speaker of the Parliament of Ghana, the Right Honorable Ita Alajete. He spoke on the topic Reflections on the Effectiveness of the Parliament of the Fourth Republic of Ghana. The distinguished chairman of that event was the Very Reverend Professor 6TH KRONTI, chairman of the National African Peer Review Mechanism Governing Council. The third KRONTI AKWAMU lecture, the Golden Jubilee edition, was delivered by Professor Richard Joseph, a distinguished political scientist, former head of the Program of African Studies at the Northwestern University, the USA, and former head of Africa Programs at the Carter Center, on the topic Ghana and Democratic Development in Africa, Back to the Future. That lecture event was chaired by Honorable J. Mensah, MP for Sunyani, then chairman of the National Development Planning Commission, and also former senior minister. The fourth KRONTI AKWAMU lecture was delivered by Dr. K.Y. Amwakun, founder and president of the Africa Center for Economic Transformation, on the topic, the future of civil society in democratic governance and development in Africa. The chairperson was Mrs. Mary Chinwihese, chief advisor to the former president, John Adjei-Kufuor. The fifth KRONTI AKWAMU lecture held just 2 months after the intensely contested 2008 presidential election, and in the middle of an acrimonious transition period, was appropriately delivered by Dr. Kojo Afarijan, chairman of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, and chaired by the distinguished jurist and former Electoral Commissioner, Justice B.C.R.A. Sikra. Today's lecture, fortunately, the fifth KRONTI AKWAMU lecture, sets the stage for a public discussion on today's topic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, oftentimes as Ghanaians, we forget too easily that the country narrowly escaped civil strife and conflicts during the 2008 election. And of course, the violence that characterized the pre-election, election, and post-election period. We have forgotten too easily about the mayhem in Bushiri, the murders in Abu Bushi, and recently the violence in Akotia and Chukwu. It is our hope that today's discussion will reignite our interest and return all key stakeholders to the unfinished business of ridding our elections from violence. Since inception, all the KRONTI AKWAMU lectures have taken place here at the British Council auditorium. We are very grateful to the management of the British Council for this cooperation. I am pleased to report that the text of all the previous lectures have been published. They are outside and also have been widely disseminated. We intend to do the same with this particular lecture. I wish to also place on record our profound gratitude to the following organizations for their generous sponsorship of this lecture: KPMG Ghana, Frederick Newman Foundation, Coca-Cola, Unique Image, Joy FM, and all media partners. We owe similar gratitude to all of you, distinguished participants, for honoring us with your presence at this event. Before I hand over to Professor Jane Nana Okokwaji, my Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast and a member of the Governing Council, to introduce our chairperson, let me call on Mr. Rendo from KPMG to give his message. Thank you very much.
Archbishop Chairman, Charles Park, distinguished speaker, fellow sponsor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I should like to convey to you the apologies of Joseph Winfrey, senior partner of KPMG, for his inability to be with us this afternoon. Work has taken him to Sierra Leone, and as I speak now, I hope that he has caught something and is on his way back to Accra. A portion of us who went with him, the flight which was to have taken off by 4 o'clock actually took off at 11 p.m. So I hope he's not subjected to a similar occurrence. But that is part of the experience in our sub-region. We learn to survive under those circumstances. KPMG is pleased to be associated with this series of lectures, KRONTI and AKWAMU. And if you should see our name on the brochure, it is not really because of any major sponsorship financial, but we are committed to the ideals of equity and good governance. Most of you do know KPMG in the private sector as an accounting financial institution that is committed to ensuring that reports that are produced are free of material mistakes and they can be supported and reliably placed upon. Now, it's not only in the private sector, but even also in the public sector. These days, time and again, we are aware of the importance of financial accountability, and that runs through every program. And from that point of view, we're very proud to be associated with these schools of practice. Thank you very much.
Program Officer of the Baby Boomer Foundation.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the British Norman Foundation, I would like to welcome you to today's CDD lecture. The British Norman Foundation aims to implement ideas on liberty and training in freedom. We want to contribute to the furtherance of the principle of freedom and human dignity in all sectors of society, together with our partner, the Center of Democratic Development. The British Norman Foundation supports CD's efforts in promoting democracy and good governance and the development of a liberal political economic environment in Ghana and Africa through strengthening of democratic structures and processes. Only a state based on the rule of law can fulfill the key tasks which liberals believe are the state's responsibilities to protect the freedom, security, and the property of all people. Only such a state can guarantee that the same rules apply to all and are actually implemented in order to prevent and resolve conflicts peacefully and without arbitrariness. The British Norman Foundation is proud to have CDE as a partner who makes efforts in peace building and democratic conflict management in Ghana and the whole West African sub-region. On behalf of British Norman Foundation, I would like to express my greetings on today's evening's topic. And once again, I'm looking forward to a highly consistent lecture. Thank you very much.
I'm pleased to invite Professor Nana Okokwaji, Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, a member of the CDD Governing Board, to introduce the lecture.
Executive Director, Chair, and members of CDD, distinguished parliamentarians and their persons, our sponsors, His Excellencies, friends of the media, distinguished audience, and indeed everybody in this room, I want to welcome you to this event. It is my privilege to introduce our chairman for the occasion, and he holds a doctorate degree in sacred theology from the Pontifical Salesian University and a BA in philosophy and sacred theology from the Pontifical Urban College and University both at Rome in Italy. He was ordained into the priesthood in 1976 in Accra, and his episcopal ordination to the Diocese of Koforidua took place at the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome in Italy. He was appointed Metropolitan Archbishop of Accra in 2005. He is currently the Episcopal Chairman for the Justice and Peace Commission and the Vice President of the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference. And I want to thank whoever put this summit together, because if I had to go through the CV, I'm sure that would have been quite an. So we are privileged, ladies and gentlemen, and please let's accept for the chairman for the occasion, Archbishop Charles Gabriel A.N.O. Palmer Bako. Actually, I'm discovering the A.N.O. for the first time this evening. So we are new things to learn. Thank you very much.
When you are a clergyman, you dodge all protocol by saying, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, and in the Lord our God. So I'd like to say thank you very much for the introduction. They say the sweetness of the pudding lies in the eating of it. So let's get down to brass tacks and take what we came here for. I have the singular honor and privilege of introducing to you our very renowned speaker in the person of Dr. Jendai E. Fraser. She is a well-known worldwide policy leader and an expert on African affairs. She asked me also to be very brief. Currently, she's director of Carnegie Mellon New Center for International Policy and Innovation, CIPI, where she's particularly interested in utilizing technology and applying innovative solutions to core issues of development and governance in Africa. Ambassador Fraser was the leading architect of US-Africa policy for nearly a decade, and she rose to become the first woman US ambassador to South Africa in the year 2004. And it might interest you a few mercenary tendencies we always have. Now, during a period of government assistance or service, she helped the US to quadruple its assistance to Africa, reaching a very historic high of $6.7 billion by 2008. I would not be surprised if our speaker was invited here because of this pecuniary. Our illustrious speaker is widely accredited with designing the administration of the Bush government's policies for ending the wars in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Burundi. And she was also instrumental in resolving the crisis in Kenya after the elections. In recognition of her contribution, Secretary Condoleezza Rice presented her with the Distinguished Service Award in January 2009, the highest award bestowed by the Secretary of State. Our speaker for this evening received a BA degree in Political Science, honors, and African and Afro-American Studies with distinction in 1985, and an MA degree in International Policy Studies in 1985 also, and in International Development Education in 1989. And she has a PhD in Political Science, which she received in 1994, all from the Stanford University. Ladies and gentlemen, Put your hands together for Jendai.
Real pleasure to be here. And I first would like to thank His Grace, the Archbishop, for that very wonderful and brief thank you introduction. I'd also very much like to thank the Executive Director for the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, Dr. Jima Wadi, for inviting me, suggesting that I come and give this lecture. It's a real great honor to do so. I should thank Professor Nana Akoko Ajimang for her introduction as well, the sponsors and fellow DICE members, our host, the British Council, and thank all of you for being here. And I will follow in His Grace's footsteps and just observe all protocols as appropriate. It is indeed an honor, and I think that my subject this evening is an important one, but one that I have in the past inverted. The subject is enhancing the conflict prevention role of elections in Africa. And normally, I focus on elections as potential flashpoints for violence, not as conflict prevention mechanisms or tools, which of course we know it is. And so my subject was somewhat inspired by a conference that Carnegie Mellon University, where I'm now a faculty, and CDD Ghana, we're hosting next week, Monday through Wednesday, and we're looking at preventing electoral violence, focusing particularly on 5 case studies, or 5 upcoming elections in Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Sudan, and Liberia. So you can see how important this subject is, and that we have some good deliberation this afternoon that I can then carry into our conference, and perhaps it would have been better for me to time this lecture after that conference so I could also share with you the thoughts of the participants. But tonight I'd like to highlight some of the themes that will come up in the conference, as well as my observations from the past 8 years in the thick of trying to promote the democratization process across Africa. I'm going to look at 4 particular areas, or touch on 4 particular areas. One is historical trends in Africa's democratic development. Secondly, new approaches needed to mitigate the role of political violence. Thirdly, past and prospective role of elections in conflict prevention. And then finally, look at some recommendations for how the U.S. might approach Africa's complex political development. That sounds like a lot. It's not. I know that I only have about 30 minutes, so I will just touch on these aspects, and I think that we can do much more in the deliberative process of Q&A. In terms of the context, I think we're basically in the 3rd wave of democracy. The first phase obviously being the independence movements, in which Ghana, of course, led in 57. The second, the 1990s sort of push to multi-party democracy after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And now we're in what I would call this 3rd wave of democracy, focused especially on the quality of democracy, focused on increasing accountability of government to citizens. The contemporary character of this phase, or the key challenges as I see it, are for good governance at this point in time is really strengthening the institutions of governance, particularly multi-party parliaments, courts, is balancing against an all-powerful presidency. I think one of your board members, Kwesi Prempeh of CDD Ghana, calls it the imperial presidency, and really looking at citizen empowerment, moving subjects to voters, to citizens, as Michael Bratton wrote in a book edited by Dr. Jima Wadi. So the challenge today to good governance that I experience in my position in government is dynastic successions. We were just talking about that. Basically, presidents who intend to shoehorn their sons into power after them. There's quite a lot across Africa right now today. The issue of term limits, overturning term limits. So both of these are very much issues of succession. How does one change political leadership? A tendency towards ethnic mobilization.